Okay, so you're thinking about picking up Yanagihara's A Little Life.
Mm-hmm.
But you're a little hesitant to commit to, what, 700 pages?
Yeah.
Of, from what I hear, a pretty intense emotional roller coaster ride.
It is.
We get it.
Yeah.
This book is, it's notorious
Yeah.
for sparking some pretty strong reactions,
Yes.
both positive and negative.
Absolutely. A Little Life, it's not your typical light read.
Right.
It's emotionally intense. It definitely demands a lot from the reader.
And that's where this deep dive comes in. We've got stacks of reviews and articles, and we're here to help you figure out if this book is worth your time.
Yeah, we'll unpack the challenging themes, the controversial elements,
Right.
the compelling writing, and hopefully that'll give you all the information you need to decide if this book is right for you.
So imagine you're trying to explain A Little Life to someone who has never even heard of it. What's the basic premise?
Okay, so it follows the lives of 4 friends, Willem, Malcolm, JB, and Jude. And they're navigating life in New York City.
Okay.
But while the book, it spans decades, and it touches on all their lives, it's truly Jude's story that takes center stage.
And that's where things get pretty intense, right?
Yes.
I've seen some reviews use, I've seen terms like misery porn
Yes.
and torture porn
I've seen that too.
to describe it. Is it really that bleak?
It can be, yeah. A Little Life, it doesn't shy away from graphic descriptions of abuse
Yeah.
and the profound and lasting impact of Jude's traumatic past.
Okay.
And the length of the book,
Yeah.
it definitely contributes to that feeling of relentless darkness.
So no light in this little life.
Whoa.
Is it just 700 pages of unrelenting suffering?
There is light, but
I need a glimmer of hope here.
yeah, there is light, but it comes from the powerful bonds of friendship and love. And the book explores how these connections can sustain us, even in the face of, incredible pain.
One quote that I think captures this beautifully is, wasn't friendship its own miracle? The finding of another person who made the entire lonely world seem somehow less lonely.
Okay, that is a little reassuring.
Mm-hmm.
But is it enough to balance out the intensity?
Wow.
And is all the graphic detail, is it truly necessary, or does it feel gratuitous?
Well, that's one of the biggest debates
Yeah.
surrounding this book.
Right.
Yanagihara, she has stated that she wanted to explore suffering in a very raw and unflinching way.
Uh-huh.
But her decision to write Jude's character without researching the realities of child abuse,
Yeah.
well, that fueled a lot of controversy.
I can see why that would be a concern, right? It's like, how can you accurately portray something that you haven't, researched or experienced firsthand? It seems risky, to say the least.
Exactly, and that's not the only criticism.
Right.
Some find the portrayal of Jude's success, despite his profound trauma and his friend's unwavering devotion.
Well, they say that's unrealistic.
Right.
They argue that it romanticizes suffering.
Right.
And it glorifies Jude's refusal to seek help.
Those are some valid points.
Yeah.
I mean, if the book isn't grounded in reality, isn't
Well-
there a danger of it sending, the wrong message?
Yeah, it's a debate worth having, but it's important to note that there are contrasting views.
Okay.
Some readers, they find Jude's struggles and his friends' responses to be deeply human
Okay.
and relatable, and they draw comparisons to classic literary figures
Okay.
who endure intense suffering, like Heathcliff from Wuthering Heights.
Right.
And they argue that the book, while fictional,
Right.
offers a realistic depiction of the long-term effects of trauma
Okay.
and the complex journey of healing.
So we got some seriously polarized opinions here.
Yes.
Some call it exploitative, others a masterpiece.
Yeah.
I mean, how are we supposed to make sense of that?
Well, what's fascinating is that A Little Life, it doesn't just spark debate about the story itself,
Right.
but also about the role of fiction.
Oh, okay.
Like, is it okay for an author to write about trauma
Right.
without personal experience? Is there a line between art and exploitation?
It's like Yanagihara. She threw a literary grenade.
Yes.
And everyone's scrambling to pick up the pieces.
Exactly. And that's part of what makes it so compelling.
Yeah.
It forces us to confront these uncomfortable questions
Yeah.
and grapple with complex emotions.
Okay, so where does that leave us in terms of a recommendation?
Right.
Is A Little Life even worth reading?
Well, look, this isn't about simple enjoyment.
Okay.
It's a challenging read designed to provoke introspection and strong emotional responses.
Yeah, so definitely not beach reading material then.
No, no. If you're looking for a book that will stay with you,
Uh-huh.
a book that will make you think and feel deeply,
Yeah.
A Little Life might be worth exploring.
Okay. But what about all the criticisms?
Mhm.
You know, the graphic content, the potentially unrealistic portrayal of trauma,
Right?
the bleakness,
Yes.
are those deal breakers?
That's where it gets tricky. It
Yeah.
really comes down to personal preference
That,
and what you're looking for
right.
in a reading experience.
So no simple yes or no answer.
No.
Oh.
I'm afraid not. Ultimately, whether or not A Little Life is quote-unquote good or worth reading
Yeah.
is subjective. But what we can do is give you a better understanding of what to expect
Okay.
so you can decide if it's
Yeah.
the right book for you.
Okay, so let's dive a bit deeper into some of the specific elements that are causing all this controversy.
Okay.
Um,
Let's start with the writing itself.
Okay.
Despite the heavy subject matter,
yeah.
many reviewers, they praise Yanagihara's prose
Uh-huh.
as being beautiful and evocative.
Okay.
They argue that she captures the nuances of human emotion
Right.
and the complexities of relationships with incredible skill.
I've heard that too, but I've also seen some reviewers call the writing overwrought and melodramatic.
Yeah.
Is it possible to have both? Can the writing be beautiful and over the top at the same time?
Absolutely. It's a tightrope walk.
Yeah.
And that's where the subjectivity comes in.
Okay.
Some readers might find the detailed descriptions and the intense emotional language
Yeah.
to be powerful and moving,
Okay.
while others might find it excessive and manipulative.
So it sounds like the writing style itself could be a deciding factor for some readers.
Yes, it could. If you prefer spare minimalist prose,
Right.
this book might not be for you.
Okay.
But if you enjoy lush, descriptive language that evokes strong emotions,
Yeah.
then you might appreciate Yanagihara's style.
Okay. So let's move on to another contentious point.
Okay.
The plausibility of the plot
Mm-hmm.
and characters.
Right.
Some critics, they argue that Jude's success,
Yes.
despite his profound trauma, is unrealistic, and that his friend's unwavering devotion stretches the bounds of believability.
Yeah, that's a common critique.
Okay.
And it's worth considering, however,
Yeah.
there are also reviewers who argue that the book is not meant to be a realistic depiction of life, but rather a heightened exploration of human emotion
Right.
and the power of connection.
So it's more like a fable or a modern day, like, Greek tragedy.
Yeah, think of it as a thought experiment. What happens when a person is subjected to, unimaginable suffering?
Right.
How does it shape their relationships?
Yeah.
How does it affect their ability to function in the world?
Right. But if the characters and situations feel too implausible,
Mm-hmm.
can it really resonate
Yeah.
on an emotional level?
That's a valid question. And again,
Yeah.
it depends on the reader.
Okay.
Some might find the lack of realism to be a distraction,
Ah.
while others might be willing to suspend disbelief
Right.
in order to, engage with the deeper themes of the story.
Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room.
Okay.
The graphic depictions of Jude's trauma.
Mm-hmm.
I know this is a major sticking point for a lot of readers.
It's understandable.
Yeah.
The book contains explicit descriptions of child abuse, self-harm,
Right.
and other forms of violence.
Yeah.
And these scenes can be extremely difficult to read.
Right.
Some reviewers argue that these descriptions are necessary
Okay.
to convey the full weight of Jude's experiences
Uh-huh.
and to challenge readers to confront the realities of trauma.
But isn't there a risk of, like, sensationalizing trauma
Mm-hmm.
and exploiting readers' emotions for the sake of, like, shock value?
Well, there's always that risk, and
Yeah.
and it's a valid concern. Yanagihara has been criticized for
Mhm.
potentially crossing that line,
Right.
and it's a debate that's worth having. But
Yeah.
it's important to note that many reviewers, including those who have personal experience with trauma, have found the depictions to be sensitive and authentic,
Oh.
even if they were difficult to read.
So how do we reconcile these conflicting views?
Well, by recognizing that there's no easy answer.
Okay.
Different readers will have different levels of tolerance for graphic content,
Right.
and there's no right or wrong way to feel about it.
So we're back to the idea that it all comes down to personal preference.
Exactly. What one reader finds disturbing,
Yeah.
another might find profoundly moving.
Right.
It's important to be aware of the book's content and to approach it with caution,
Yeah.
especially if you're sensitive to depictions of violence and trauma.
Okay. So we've talked about the writing style, the plausibility of the story,
Mm-hmm.
and the graphic content.
Right.
What about the overall message of the book?
Yeah.
What is Yanagihara trying to say with A Little Life?
That's a complex question, and
Yeah.
there are multiple interpretations.
Okay.
Some readers, they see the book as a testament to the power of love and friendship to help us overcome even the most profound pain. Others see it as a cautionary tale about the lasting effects of trauma
Right.
and the limits of human resilience.
Okay.
Still others see it as a commentary on the complexities of identity
Mm-hmm.
and the search for belonging in a world that often feels hostile and unforgiving.
So there's no, single definitive interpretation.
No, and that's part of what makes the book
Yeah.
so thought-provoking. It invites readers to grapple with these big questions
Right.
and to come to their own conclusions.
So it sounds like A Little Life is a book that that demands a lot from its readers,
Yes.
emotionally, intellectually,
Mhm.
and even ethically.
Yes.
It's not just a story, it's an experience,
Yeah.
a challenge,
It is.
and a conversation starter.
Exactly. And that's why we're doing this deep dive,
Yeah.
to help you decide if you're ready to take that journey.
So where do we go from here? How can we help listeners figure out if A Little Life is the right book for them?
Let's compare it to some other books that deal with similar themes.
Okay.
Sometimes, seeing a book in relation to others
Right.
can help clarify whether it's something you'd want to read.
Great idea.
Yeah.
What are some comparable books
Hmm.
that might help us put A Little Life in context?
Well, if you're interested in books that explore the power of friendship in the face of adversity,
Uh-huh.
you might consider The Interestings by Meg Wolitzer.
Okay.
It follows a group of friends over several decades as they navigate, the complexities of life and art.
Okay.
It's a sprawling,
Yeah.
character-driven novel that's
Right.
it's less intense than A Little Life,
Okay.
but it still deals with, themes of ambition, betrayal,
Right.
and the enduring bonds of friendship.
That's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
What about something that delves into the long-term effects of trauma?
For that, I would recommend My Dark Vanessa
Okay.
by Kate Elizabeth Russell, which explores the complexities of a relationship between a teenage girl and her much older teacher.
Right.
It's a challenging
Yeah.
but important read that examines the nuances of power, consent,
Right.
and the lingering trauma of abuse.
That one's been on my to-read list for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard it's incredibly powerful, but also very difficult to read.
It is. It's a book that stays with you.
Yeah.
And like A Little Life,
Well.
it sparked a lot of conversation about, the ethics of writing about trauma and the responsibility of authors to represent these experiences with sensitivity and authenticity.
Okay, so we've got The Interestings for friendship
Mm-hmm.
and My Dark Vanessa for trauma.
Yes.
What about something that deals with both,
Okay.
but maybe in a less intense way than A Little Life?
If you're looking for a book that explores the power of connection
Okay.
and the complexities of human relationships,
Mm.
but with, a more hopeful tone,
Okay.
you might consider A Man Called Ove by Frederick Backman.
Okay.
It's a heartwarming and humorous story about a grumpy old man who finds his life transformed by the arrival of new neighbors.
I love that book.
It deals with, themes of loss, grief,
Right.
and the importance of community.
Yeah.
But it's ultimately a story about the possibility of finding, happiness and connection,
Right.
even in the most unexpected places.
That's definitely a tearjerker, but in a good way.
Exactly. It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's always hope,
Yeah.
and that human connection can be a powerful force for healing and transformation.
So we've got a range of options here, from the intense and emotionally challenging A Little Life and My Dark Vanessa to the more heartwarming and hopeful A Man Called Ove.
Right.
Hopefully these comparisons can help listeners kind of get a better sense of where A Little Life
Yeah.
fits into the literary landscape,
Mm-hmm.
and whether it's a book that aligns with their with their personal reading preferences.
Exactly. And remember, there's no right or wrong answer
Right.
when it comes to choosing what to read.
Right.
The most important thing is to find books that resonate with you, challenge you,
Yeah.
and expand your understanding of the world.
Well said. But before we wrap up this deep dive, let's take a closer look at some of the specific elements
Okay.
that make A Little Life so unique and controversial.
Okay. One thing that stands out is the way Yanagihara uses time
Oh, okay.
in the novel.
Right.
She jumps back and forth between different periods in the characters' lives,
Okay.
creating a fragmented and nonlinear narrative.
That's interesting. What's the effect of that? Like, how does it impact the reading experience?
It creates a sense of mystery and suspense. As the reader, gradually pieces together the events of Jude's past and the secrets he's hiding.
Okay.
It also allows Yanagihara to explore the ways in which our past experiences continue to shape us throughout our lives, even as we try to, move on.
I can see how that would add to the emotional intensity of the book.
Absolutely. It also reflects the fragmented nature of trauma and the way it can disrupt our sense of time and chronology.
Another thing I've noticed in reviews is the emphasis on Jude's physical pain and suffering. It seems like his body is almost a character in itself, bearing the marks of his traumatic past.
You're right. Yanagihara, she goes into great detail about Jude's physical injuries, his chronic pain, and his struggles with mobility.
Right.
This graphic depiction of physical suffering.
Yeah.
Well, it's part of what makes the book so difficult to read for some, but it's also what makes it so powerful for others.
Okay.
For example, there's a scene where Jude is struggling to walk due to an injury, and his friend Willem helps him bathe.
Right.
The description of Jude's vulnerability and Willem's tenderness is both heartbreaking and incredibly moving.
What's the purpose of that? Why focus so much on the physicality of Jude's pain?
Well, I think it serves several purposes.
Okay.
First, it highlights the interconnectedness of mind and body and the ways in which trauma can manifest physically as well as emotionally.
Okay.
Second, it forces the reader to confront the reality of suffering in a very visceral way, making it impossible to look away.
Okay.
And third, it emphasizes Jude's vulnerability and the ways in which his body has become a site of both pain and resilience.
It sounds like Yanagihara is using the body as a metaphor for the enduring impact of trauma and the challenges of healing.
Exactly. And by focusing on the physicality of Jude's pain, she's asking us to consider the ways in which trauma can shape not only our minds, but also our bodies and our experiences in the world.
Okay, so we've talked about the nonlinear narrative and the emphasis on physical suffering.
Right.
What about the role of art in the novel? It seems like art plays a significant role.
It does.
In the lives of all four friends.
Willem is an actor. Malcolm is an architect.
Right.
JB is a painter.
Yeah.
And Jude, while not an artist himself, is a passionate collector of art.
Okay.
Yanagihara uses art as a way to explore themes of creativity, self-expression, and the search for meaning.
What kind of art do they create or appreciate?
It varies.
Okay.
Willem is drawn to roles that challenge him emotionally and allow him to explore, the depths of human experience. For instance, he lands a role in a play about a man struggling with addiction. And his performance is both raw and deeply moving.
Right.
Malcolm is fascinated by the intersection of form and function, and he strives to create buildings that are both beautiful and practical.
Okay.
JB is a more experimental artist, and his work often reflects his own, emotional turmoil and his complex relationships with his friends.
Okay.
One of his most striking pieces is a series of portraits of Jude, each capturing a different aspect of his personality and pain.
Right.
And Jude, as a collector, is drawn to art that speaks to his own experiences of pain and beauty.
It sounds like art is a way for these characters to make sense of the world and to connect with something like larger than themselves.
It is. And it's also a source of both solace and tension in their relationships. You know, their shared love of art, it brings them together.
Right.
But their different perspectives and ambitions also create conflict.
I could see how that would play out. It's like art becomes a mirror for their own internal struggles.
Yes.
And the challenges of maintaining like close relationships over time.
Exactly. And it's also a reminder that
Yeah.
even in the face of, you know, profound suffering, beauty and creativity can exist. And that art can be a powerful force for healing and transformation.
So to sum up, we've got a novel with a non-linear narrative, graphic depictions of physical suffering, a focus on the role of art.
Yes.
And a cast of characters grappling with complex themes of trauma, love, friendship, and resilience.
Right.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. And it's a book that will undoubtedly provoke strong reactions.
Yeah.
But it's also a book that offers a profound and unforgettable exploration of the human condition.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, but I feel like we've only scratched the surface.
There's always more to explore. And that's part of the beauty of literature.
Yeah.
For example, we haven't even touched on the complex relationships between Jude and his various caregivers throughout his life, or the exploration of, you know, class and social mobility in the novel.
Right. I think we've given our listener a lot to think about.
I hope so.
Yeah.
And remember, the best way to decide if A Little Life is right for you is to explore the source material for yourself.
Read some reviews, check out some author interviews, and see what resonates with you.
And most importantly, trust your own instincts.
Right.
If a book feels too intense or triggering, it's okay to put it down.
Right.
There are plenty of other amazing books out there waiting to be discovered.
We've talked about the heavy themes, the controversies, but I'm curious about the actual writing itself.
Yeah.
Is A Little Life, is it well written even if the content is tough?
That's one of the most interesting things about this book.
Okay.
Even reviewers who struggle with the content often acknowledge the beauty of Yanagihara's prose.
Okay.
They describe it as lyrical, evocative, even poetic at times.
I've also seen criticisms that it's overwrought or melodramatic. How can a book be both beautifully written and over the top?
It's a tightrope walk.
Yeah.
And Yanagihara doesn't always stay perfectly balanced.
Right.
Some readers might find the detailed descriptions and intense emotional language to be powerful and moving.
Right.
For instance, there's a passage where Jude is describing his love for Willem, and it's so raw and vulnerable, it almost takes your breath away.
Right.
But others might find that same passage to be excessive and emotionally manipulative.
So the writing style itself could be a make or break factor for some readers.
Absolutely. If you prefer, sparse minimalist prose, A Little Life probably isn't for you.
Okay.
But if you enjoy language that's rich and evocative, even if it sometimes veers into, melodrama, then you might find Yanagihara's style captivating.
Okay, so the writing style is a key consideration. What about the overall reading experience?
Right.
Should I expect a satisfying resolution, or am I going to be left feeling emotionally drained and maybe even a little bit traumatized?
A Little Life is not a feel-good story.
Right.
It's designed to challenge you emotionally and intellectually.
Okay.
It will make you think about the nature of suffering, the power of love and friendship, and the limits of human resilience. It will stay with you long after you finish the last page.
So it's not something to pick up if I'm looking for a light escapist read.
Definitely not. It's more of a journey into the depths of the human psyche.
Right.
And it's not always an easy one.
So should I read A Little Life?
Ultimately, that's a decision only you can make.
Right.
But hopefully, this deep dive has given you a better understanding of what to expect.
Yeah.
If you're drawn to books that explore complex themes, challenge conventional narratives, and push the boundaries of, emotional intensity, then A Little Life might be worth adding to your list.
Okay.
But if you're looking for something light,
Yeah.
uplifting, or predictable,
Right.
then this book is probably not for you.
Well said.
Mhm.
I think you've given our listener a lot to think about.
And remember, even if you decide not to read A Little Life,
Mm-hmm.
the conversations surrounding it are fascinating in their own right. They make us think about the role of art,
Right.
the ethics of representation,
Yeah.
and the power of storytelling to confront, difficult truths.
I think that's a perfect note to end on. Happy reading, everyone, and happy diving.
Mm-hmm.